Gustavo, welcome to the Reason for Everything podcast. I'm thrilled to have you on today, and thanks for jumping on.
Thanks so much, Arjan. I was really looking forward to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So we'll get into our background and how we got connected in a moment here. But before we do, your walk-up song was Superman Returns from John Ottman from the movie. I'm a huge superhero fan in the first place, probably a little partial to Marvel at this point, but DC is also fantastic. Grew up a big DC fan. My brother Bijan, who connected us in the first place, got me onto the DC superhero wave very, very early on. So maybe you walk the audience through why Superman Returns is your walk-up song, and you said you listen to it every day.
I do. I've tried every type of songs, to be honest. And what I learned when I love about this song is it relates to a superhuman, to power and everything positive. And also there's no voice or any sort of lyrics that you get attached to. It's just instrumental. So every day that I listen to it, it feels like it's a new song to me. So because it merges with what I have in mind at that moment. So it's kind of became a thing in the morning. So when I go to the gym or go for a run, it kind of blends with the context of my morning and the actual orchestra behind the song.
I don't know if you feel the same way, but I always find it fascinating when I get a new pair of headphones or when I listen to a song that I love on a different speaker for the first time, picking up on different notes or hints of the song that I wasn't able to hear before. Do you ever notice that, even with Superman Returns or other songs you like?
I do, and then it's one of those times that I ask myself, why did I never study music? Because I know nothing about music. But to your point, I listen to specific pieces of it, and every day I try to focus and can I hear something different? And I typically do. So it's fascinating.
Super cool. Well, maybe just by way of introduction for those who don't know you, I'll give you a quick second to introduce yourself, and then I'll dive into how we got connected.
Sure. I think the quick introduction, I think first and foremost, I'm an immigrant to the United States. Came here on my own at age 20 with big dreams in mind. Rose from dishwasher to executive positions at GE and now at IBM. In the process, I built a beautiful family and a global network that I'm really proud of. And for the past 20 years, I've been in tech. So my experience is really focused on having my own business to working in small settings, small businesses, all the way to large corporations. And my passion is really around education and human connection, I say. And Arjun, I say that I firmly believe that when we focus on our education and we focus on connecting with humans and we have a clear picture of what we want out of life, anything is possible. So that's kind of a little bit of me. So professionally, I'm currently at IBM. We'll talk more about the kind of professional side. But what I enjoy doing, the purpose of what I do is to be here with my family. But we'll talk more about that as well.
Terrific. And so Bijan, my brother, also at IBM, introduced the two of us. As soon as I started my podcast and reaching out to people on my network, I employed those around me, to my family and friends, to let me know if they knew of anybody that had a unique R4E story. And pretty quickly on, Bijan introduced me to your story, and I had a chance to do some digging. I mean, an incredible epitome of what I'm looking to do with this show, and sharing stories like yours. So as you mentioned, you immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 20 by way of Brazil, if I did my homework correctly. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Fantastic. What part of Brazil were you from?
I was born in São Paulo.
Okay. So you grew up in São Paulo. What was that experience like for you? Obviously very different than where you are now in Boca, very different than New York City. What was that experience like, and how did that dream of yours come to be in moving from São Paulo to New York City?
I think what I say is that, and this is what I try to describe to my kids, but mostly, people of my generation would agree with me. I probably was the last generation growing up on the streets. So playing soccer on the streets, taking the bus by myself at age 7 or 8 or 9. So it's a big city, at the time, probably 18 million people. Now probably somewhere, 22 million people. So it's a big city. But growing up in São Paulo, in the large city, gave me, independence of knowing where to go. And at that time, we had more. I feel like we had more freedom, and because we spent a lot of time playing on the streets with my colleagues and friends. I think I had a great childhood for the most part. Not no regrets. And at age 20, I came into an inflection point between career and something that I've always dreamed about, exploring the world, right? Really, I say popping the Brazilian bubble and getting myself out in the world and seeing what's out there. And between different choices that I had, I was supposed to go to England and other places, ended up in New York City. And at that point in time, at age 20, it was the best thing that happened to me.
Now, being in Brazil, having different destinations you could have ended up in, whether it be England or whether it be New York, do you look back and think back on what your life would have been like had you not gone to New York? Does that ever cross your mind at all? If you had picked one of those other destinations?
It does. It does. I mean, I think there's actually a book that I read it. I can't recall the name, but it essentially talks about the decisions that you make before the age of 20 or 18 or something like that. If you really reflect back later in life, you're going to find a lot of patterns. And I kind of went through that journey. And I think there's 3 moments before the age of 20 that when I look back, I say those are reflection points and inflection points that had I made a different decision to either not do it or do it, I'll probably be somewhere else, right? And we can never tell where we're going to end up. But I'm glad I made those decisions. One particularly was at age 12. I had a dream of becoming a soccer player. That was kind of most of the Brazilian kids playing on the streets. But at age 20, at age 12, I had an opportunity to go and play soccer in Chile as part of an exchange program. So I went for a couple months over the summer. So my parents, sent me there by myself. No parents around, just with the soccer team. And I stayed with a Chilean family. So here you are for the first time at age 12 in a family that you don't know, speaking a language that you never spoke before. And I loved it. So I remember that experience started to shape who I've become. And then from that moment, I think I started to enjoy the unknown. I really understood that going to places where I'm unfamiliar with is something that I actually enjoyed. And I see patterns of me growing up that way. Then the second moment was at age 16, I had an opportunity to go to a professional team and to be in their youth division. And I had a contract in my hand and I had to sign and have, I don't know, a couple of weeks to sign. So I sat down with my dad and he said to me, you have to make a decision. Either you go and try it out to be a professional soccer player with 200 other kids, or you can continue on your education. You're going to have to choose. And unfortunately, because of the way the Brazilian system set up, for the most part, and things have changed ever since. But back in the days, if you really want to become a professional soccer player, we have to choose one or the other. So I chose education over a dream of becoming a soccer player. And I think the third pivot moment before that, when I decided to come to the US, was actually dropping my university, selling my car, and putting my mind that I wanted to have the experience of the unknown on my own for whatever time frame I wanted it, in my own terms. So I dropped everything, dropped out of university, quit my job, and came to the unknown called New York City. And to me, I always say that I was professionally raised in New York City, where I got my first degree in the US, an associate degree in technology. Is where I met people from all over the world, where I got to learn English, and just experience, New York City from the grounds within restaurants, washing dishes, to working at restaurants, to building my first business, and getting myself exposed to many things that the city has to offer.
for those on audio only, to double down on Gustavo's what seems to be love for New York City, there's a statue, or miniature statue of the Statue of Liberty in the background, and a picture of the Cavs going through what looks to be Times Square. So I'm excited to learn more about your New York City experience. When you mentioned you went up there, you were working as a dishwasher, working your way through the kitchens, building your network, learning the language. At what point did you start GM, and what was that, I guess, brainchild like from idea to fruition?
It was on my first year, actually. I was working for one of the restaurants. It was a French restaurant on 8th Street and First Avenue. And I was washing dishes, and I was downstairs, and every day I would come in making $6 an hour, as happily as you can be. But at that time, I already had 3 years of experience doing web programming and design. The internet was still the bubble, right? So early 2000s. So this is at the year 2000. And I saw an opportunity where the restaurants in the area didn't have a presence on the web. At that time, we didn't have Google, it was ask.com, if you recall it. And I went up with my own way of speaking, kind of partially Spanish, Portuñol, we call it, and a little bit of English, to this French owner. And I said, I can build your website. And he said, sure, how much you want to charge me? And I said, I don't know. He said, what if I let you eat here for 6 months? And I said, that sounds like a deal to me, right? He would feed me during work hours, but he said, you can come off work hours and eat any day you want. I said, that sounds like a good deal to me. So I built one, and I just built a niche business of going from restaurant to restaurant. So over the course of about 3 years, I grew the business. I had a little operations of about 8 people. I had designers in Brazil. I met focusing in school, a friend of mine from China, and then a couple guys in Mexico. So I was kind of like doing sales and project management, putting my hands dirty when needed, but just selling websites. So that's how I started.
I mean, that's gritty to its core right there. I mean, from just working in the restaurant to being able to eat there for 6 months. Now, was that contract ever formalized? Were they your first official client at any point, or were you able to extend that?
Yeah, well, I deliver what I promise, and yes, I would go back, and sometimes I could even bring a friend with me to just stop by for dessert.
Super cool. Do you keep in touch with that owner at all still?
No, I tried. I think, well, first of all, they sold the business, and I changed numbers, and at that time we had the flip phones, and you would save it, and if you lose it, then everything was gone. So we didn't have the cloud. So fortunately, I lost touch with him.
So at that time, this business is growing. We've got close to 10 employees. In the back of your mind, was that dream of soccer still ringing at all, or when it was time for going back to school at Sacred Heart, what was that jump like for you? Because that was another what seems to be pretty important inflection point in your early 20s.
Yeah, I know your brother's really into soccer. I don't know if you are, but for those who are into soccer, or any sports for that matter, soccer is not just something you think about. If you're really passionate about, it becomes who you are. So my third day in New York, right? I landed on a Thursday. I think it was April 7th, and it was snowing actually. It comes Saturday. It was bright and shiny outside. So I go to the park and start playing, right? So in my spare time, the only thing I could do, and that's kind of the beauty of soccer, I didn't need to speak English. I would go in and say, can I play? And that's it. Then you just go and speak the world's, I think, largest language, which is, around the soccer ball. So, yeah, so everything I did, I had that dream in the back of my mind. And for some reason, I had that vision in me. I didn't even know there were college sports the way they are set up. I didn't know any CWA existed, but I knew whenever I had an opportunity to try to play, I would, and to opportunities present themselves like they do in the typical American dream. Ended up doing a few tryouts and got selected at D1 college team up in Connecticut. So I earned a full scholarship and moved to Connecticut in 2004, 5.
What was that experience like for you? I mean, you went from, again, just pick up soccer. You had at 16 the opportunity to go and maybe go down the path of playing professionally. Were you all in on all back in, I guess, on soccer at that point? Obviously, to your point, it's always the focus if you love soccer like that. But when you're thinking about you still have your business up and running. Were you trying to juggle a lot of things at once, or what was your headspace like at that time?
Yes, and that's I think where I kind of struggled the most at that time. You know, you are young and you believe you can do it all, and I thought I could. I realized I couldn't scale the business because I didn't have the experience, nor had the intellect of even asking for help to, yeah, I need to scale this business, right? But when this opportunity came up, I didn't mind. I didn't think twice of, hey, I can turn down the volume. I don't need to go and sell as much. I can do other things in the meantime, but it's an opportunity I couldn't let it pass by. They gave me room and board, so I'm very thankful for my former coach, Joe McQuiggan, that invested in me and gave me the opportunity. But I don't say it was an easy transition, but it was an easy decision. And then once the decision was made, I just had to adjust. So I was going back and forth from Connecticut to New York for almost a year. I would take the train back and forth as much as I could in between, season and games. Um, and at some point I realized like it wouldn't make sense. At that time, the whole let's do things remotely, it wasn't, especially with restaurant owners, they want to see your face, they want to shake your hand. So it's at some point I start asking myself, like, why do I need to go to New York if there are restaurants and other businesses in Connecticut? So I just start kind of shifting my portfolio from New York over to Connecticut.
Very interesting. And then at any point were you thinking, hey, I might still want to try to go pro with soccer at all, or were you at now 24, 25 really focused on getting involved? I know at some point you make the jump to work at JetBlue or do the JetBlue experience for an internship, if I remember correctly. But at what point were you metaphorically hanging up on the dream of playing professional soccer?
Yeah, so I wouldn't lie if I said,
Or is it still alive? Maybe should I?
yeah, I wouldn't lie if I said no. I wouldn't, right? If a contract had to present itself, would I say no again? I don't think I would. I'll probably give it a try because at that time, I think I had my responsibilities in order. And if I look back, it's not a lot of responsibilities. I was responsible for myself. I was responsible for my education. And yes, I was responsible for my business and my clients. But I think it crossed my mind. But I also knew that I wanted to control my destiny. I mean, what I love about careers is like you can guide yourself, you own your career, you can go to places that you want to go as bridge the gap of skills. In soccer or sports, unfortunately, something out of your control happens, right? And at that point I had a minor issue with my knee, then I had back problems, and I knew that I wasn't at a level that I was ready to go pro. So to me, it would be a big gap from going from college sports to professional. So I was very self-aware of that. So I quickly realized that, hey, I rather continue to invest in my education, investing, getting internships. So by the time I graduate and I go out in the market, if that's what I would choose to be, or go on my own business, I'll continue with my own business. I would much rather be in control. So I chose being in control versus, although it might be contradicting myself what I said earlier because I enjoyed the unknown. But at that point, I think I had enough. I think I hating Division I soccer in America and traveling around the U.S., singing the national anthem with my teammates, and having that professional-like experience for 3 years, for me was just achieving a dream that I've always had. And for me at that point, it was enough, right? So kind of went in that little journey of mine, and had to make a decision of not even, I didn't even go for tryouts or contact an agent and say, get me a professional contract.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because just given how it was a little bit of an unorthodox path going from your initial program in New York, having a little bit of a gap while you're standing up GN and doing the consultative work for restaurants and building out their websites, then going back to school or then going to play soccer. I almost think that if you didn't have that break, there would have probably been a little bit of the inner ego and you telling you, hey, you should go and try this out, and who knows where you'd be today if that was the case. But it almost seems like that break that you had helped to drive your decision and really helped you get to that point where you realize, hey, I've had these amazing experiences traveling, singing the national anthem, getting to as close to the pinnacle of professional soccer as you can get, being D1 US soccer. Maybe that's a little off, but I think you're tracking what I'm saying here.
Yes.
I feel like because you had that gap, you were able to come to terms with your decision, have a little bit more closure than if you're making that decision at 22 or 23, which a lot of college athletes have to do today.
Yeah, and now as I was listening to you, there's one particular day that a power nap changed the way I was thinking in that moment.
Tell me about it.
It was, we had practice in the morning. I would say we woke up at 5:30. We're out there getting ready 6:30 and running at 7. Then we'd go back, take classes, and go back out in the field and play in the afternoon again. And I was exhausted, right? But I was someone that could never take a nap because I was working. I started to work at age 15, and to me, it was always working and study through high school, putting myself through high school and then college. So I was this workaholic instead of alcoholic. I don't know what we can call it. But my mom defines as I was a hyper child, right? That's kind of definition back in the days. But I would never stop. So sleep to me was not an option. Whenever I was tired, I would fall asleep. But that day I was really tired. And my roommate, the North from England, he said, dude, you never stop. Why don't you take a nap? And he would nap every day. And I say, I can't. My mind doesn't stop. And I always have to be doing things. So whether it's like in spare time, I'm creating things, I'm calling clients, or I'm studying. So I always felt like I need to digest as much as possible. And I didn't have anybody to guide me and say, hey, can you just come down? But my roommate sort of did. He said, dude, ease up, man. So I said, I'll try to do a power nap. So I did a power nap, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes. And when I woke up, I said, I don't think I had done a power nap in years. And at that moment, I realized that New York craziness, the Sao Paulo craziness was left behind. And now I had the opportunity to live the presence and enjoy being in an American university and experience that. And that power nap led to another power nap. And I started appreciating that, hey, I need to take care of my sleep. I need to take care of my body. Body's not about being out in the field, practicing and working out. It's about eating right. It's about sleeping right. And the power naps actually help. So I started getting more in tune with myself. And so that power nap really changed my point of view at that moment in time. And I think even that, it was something that I want to consider because I wanted to focus in those days left that I had to play, enjoy my time during my university.
I'm in a similar camp where I'm not one to regularly nap, and when I do, a lot of times I wake up thinking, wow, this was really therapeutic. It felt great to just lay down. So definitely gonna use that advice myself and maybe take a power nap or keep that in mind next time I feel a little run down. But let's use that as a good segue. So at that point, you realize maybe that chapter is turning for you. What is the next step of your post college or professional career start to look like? Are you still running GN at this point? Where are you at this point?
No, I was with only a few clients, kind of on an auto pay, if you will, just providing support, because I had to make a decision of, and the decision I made was, I don't know how to scale a business. In order to learn, I need to work with people who does know how to scale a business. And then an opportunity came in. I did an internship at JetBlue, which is amazing. Then I did another internship in Greenwich with my mentor. That became a mentor, Norman Mate, at a executive search firm for about 6 months or so, or a year. But I wanted to go into a large corporation and understand how they do the big things, right? So GE came my way in a career fair. I landed a internship first. Then I was uh, invited to join their IT leadership program, which I did for 2 years. And that was also another turning point in my career because I got exposed to things and people, and got sent out to China and in other parts of the company, which at that point in time, I never thought I would. But I have to say to you that it wasn't easy. So your question about, was I thinking about? I was, but I didn't know I was, because my last year, and I don't know if you went through the same thing your last year of college, right? So you had this dream about, maybe I had a dream of playing sports in school, now getting my education. 6 months prior to actually graduating, I started feeling overwhelmed. And it was hitting a point that I think is kind of the peak of the summit, that was my flag of what success meant to me at that point. So beyond that, I had no plans. I didn't have a vision. And in my last 3 months, it was the first time and the last time I encountered depression. And I didn't know what it was, right? So thankfully, I got help through the university. And what I learned is that depression is about you trying to anticipate the future, but being unclear what the future looks like and not being confident with the self. So very quickly I understood that. And so it was about, so if graduating is the peak of your success, maybe landing a job is another flag of success. What is the next mountain you're going to climb? What is the next level? So there's no finish line, right? I think finishing line doesn't happen till we die. So you have to have goals. You have to have objects, and you got to have a vision for what you want next in your life, whether it's personal, professional, and all together. So that point in time, I decided that I wanted to join a company, have that experience, and be focused on a few things rather than to be focused on way too many things.
You mentioned having a goal, having a vision. Let's fast forward for a second before we come back to your journey through the GE program. What are your current goals, visions, aspirations looking like today? What's that on the vision board for you?
Fast forward now, I think I find myself in a point that my vision is to make sure that my kids are getting the exposure to life, their exposure to the unknown, that they exposed to self-develop themselves, and creating moments for the family where we can remember 5 years from now, 10 years from now, not by looking at pictures, by remember the emotions we feel. So today, my vision is about collecting moments, specifically with my family and friends. And then from a professional career standpoint, I think I'm at a point that I've seen and done a lot. And then to me, it's about working on things that matter with people that I care about and people that care about building things bigger than themselves.
So that's your current vision and goal. When you were in your 2-year rotational program at GE, was that in your mind at all, or was it an entirely different dream or vision for a young Gustavo at that point?
Different. And every time I think, every year I self-reflect, or every moment I self-reflect, things will become more clear. I think it's sometimes we just don't give ourselves the time to stop and think about things. But to answer your question, no, it wasn't there at all. I mean, my thing was just about what is the next thing I personally can achieve. And I think that's the beauty of, I think, becoming a father is you're no longer in the spotlight, right? So it's about, like, sometimes we say we put people first, but right now is like they become part of your purpose. And I think we do need to be I don't say selfish, like I call it like a more of a healthy selfish, where we gotta take care of ourselves first, of course. But when you do things for other people, that's when, and you see that coming to fruition, that really motivates me. And you know, so that wasn't part of the vision at all, because I don't think I've had experiences and feelings at that point in time that would open my aperture to see other things.
Hmm. I would argue maybe there was a little bit of subtle soccer teamwork that's just been programmed into you since you were a child, that you like to see those around you succeed, and that healthy selfishness in some ways is part of it, where if you're helping those around you and helping them grow and succeed, which you did on the field and then now as a parent. So maybe there was a part of that was programmed in you early on that didn't really maybe manifest until or you maybe didn't realize it until you had kids and a family around you to support.
No, I think you're right. I think the what team sports gives you is the amazing feeling of winning as a team. So celebrating as a team, to me personally, is more important than celebrating by myself. So and that team environment, whether you're losing together or winning together, but being together with a team with a broader sense of purpose, uh, I think is very inspirational, and I enjoy that. So I think you're absolutely right. So that's instilled in me. In fact, I use kind of my soccer background, the way I lead teams, the way I build teams, the way, I mean, your brother came to the company. We've never met each other, and within couple calls, we felt like we've been working together for years, right? To this day, we, you know, every time we put our minds together to do something, things just naturally happen, because he also shares that kind of team spirit.
I took us off track for a second there, diving into the vision board and hearing about how that tied into maybe where you were as a young professional at GE. But what was that next step like for you, wrapping up the GE? What was it? The GE IT leadership program. What was next step for you? 'Cause were you at GE for a little while after that, or did you jump
Yeah,
after?
so I think in a nutshell, I did 10 years at GE, and I've been with IBM for 6 years. And GE, I think the beauty of GE has been well known within master programs and historically, you know, as developing great leaders. It was probably it was absolutely, in fact, the best training in my case, an IT person could have, right? So within 2 years, you got 4 rotation of 6 months. You need to hit a business, hit the ground running, understand what the problems you're solving, come up with solution, show leadership the results. So it's about results driven, and applying frameworks and applying processes into everything that you do, but you don't do by yourself, right? So you need to understand what resources are around you so you can leverage them to make things happen fast. So I did that for 2 years, and after that, I went, you know, on average, every 18 months, I would change the roles, and I kind of raise myself to an executive level, and it came to a point that I was in GE Capital for a while. We were sold in 2017, I think it was. No, actually 2015, I think it was. Then I was topping the shoulder to join GE Digital, which is part of was sitting in the headquarters office in Fairfield, Connecticut. And at that point, they moved the headquarters to Boston. I was tapping the shoulder to move to Boston, take another role. And Arjan, I think it comes to a point that the pattern I found myself is every time I saw commonality for too long, I'll get bored. So the easy way out for me would be, yes, move to Boston and keep your job, right? But I want to, again, experience the market, experience what's out there. So I took a little bit of break, got into a great terms with GE, so that helped me make that decision. And I left, and within 3 months, I had a few options in the market, and IBM was acquiring a small business consultancy called Blue Wolf, and I was just passionate about their culture. I knew who they were, and you know, I didn't think twice of joining that team. So fast forward now, 6 years at IBM.
Now, GE during that time while you were there from what 2007 until 2017 or so was a pretty turbulent and volatile time for a lot of businesses, but GE was going through a ton of transformation at that time.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of folks that listen to this that are young professionals in their career, especially given current economic climate. There's a lot of businesses going through similar times of highs and lows. What advice might you have for individuals at a company that might be going through similar sort of transformation, where there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of just general volatility that might be bogging people down on a day-to-day basis? What advice might you have for a young professional that would be in a similar position that you were in?
Yeah, you're right. We went through a lot, right? So we have the turmoil of the financial crisis in 2008, 9. I had peers of mine, people sitting next to me getting laid off, people with kids and family, right? They need support. At that time, I didn't have, I already have my son, in 2015. Actually, I had my 2 sons at that time. And you go through a lot of emotions, right? So when a business is getting divested, the economy, the macroeconomy, which is beyond your control, it started to happen. So you naturally go into defense mode. And I think having gone through many, many cycles in the macroeconomy and in sometimes restructuring within the business, right? I think the advice I would give, I think the pattern I found, not only within me, but my mentors that I've talked to and successful people that can navigate, not talking about keeping a job at a corporate or not, just navigating crisis, is about being able to step back and analyze what's in your control, what's out of your control. And I think a great suggestion, there's a book that I love dearly called Anti-Fragile. And I think the analogy is, if you put all your eggs in one basket, you're vulnerable in anything you do. From a finance standpoint, if you put all your money in one investment, you're not diversifying your risk, right? In your career, if you put all your eggs in one basket, you also not diversifying your options. So I think we need to always be looking out to the market, and we need to be a professional of the market. If a company that you work for today doesn't want you, that's okay. Thanks for your time. I provide my services. You pay me for those services. If there isn't a place for me here anymore, then I know I can be a fit for other places if I choose to. So I think what Anti-Fragile talks about is you creating options for yourself that you can control. So I think the advice is, if you are feeling pressured because of the news, because the AI is right next to us, and now it's eating out our lunch, and it might be taking out of our jobs, or now you turn on the TV and all you hear is like jobs are shrinking, right? We're now outsourcing jobs, and there is more people looking for opportunities than opportunity available. I completely disagree. I think we need to just shut down the news, take a step back, work on yourself, understand the gaps in the market, and focus on problems to solve, because there's plenty problems in the world, in any field, in any area, and they need professionals to go and fulfill those jobs and actually solve those problems. So I think the mindset has to be focused on what results can I create, and you can have to make it clear to people of, here's what I can solve, here are the results I can create. When people put in a resume, a track record, show me the track record. You've done this for somebody else, show me what you've done. And if you want my services, I can provide you in exchange for dollars. So it's always diversifying, always being having a view of the market and knowing what you want.
You mentioned the point about AI and outsourcing. It's funny, in doing my prep work for this show, if I read it correctly, you were outsourcing some of the developers and some of the designers back in the late 90s, early 2000s for your initial businesses. So
Yes.
the concept of outsourcing, or whether it be people in other countries or some sort of new technology, take in quotes, I'm in air quotes, I say taking our jobs, or minimizing our ability to really add value. The way you can also look at it is they're just augmenting our ability to be more efficient with our time, and really efficient with our efficient with our time, so that we can add more value, even as an individual, as an employee, as an entrepreneur, which I know you talk about a bunch, and I'm a firm believer of as well.
Yes, because I mean now it feels like everything we do there are labels, right? So outsourcing wasn't a label, innovation wasn't a label, um, and then we see waves of things. And to me, technology is just a tool, right? Um, if you think about metaverse, nobody talks about it anymore. Up until last year, metaverse is going to change the world. We talked about, we saw the merge of blockchain, right? And blockchain kind of became a thing, kind of hit the bubble, and we have all sorts of negative vibes, with it. Then people drop the narrative. So I think, again, that's why I'm a firm believer of taking a step back. And because I'm a technologist, I see technology just as a tool to get to results. And I agree with you 100%. AI get helps you get to results faster. At this point, we need to train a machine. We need to feed information, and there's plenty of new opportunities that people don't even know. And when people ask me, what do you think your son's going to do when they grow up? It's like, well, I don't know what they're going to do, but I know one thing for sure. Whatever he decides to do probably doesn't exist today. So I think instead of going kind of defense mode, it's looking more on kind of the positive side to say, what are the possibilities? And because people don't have the skills and they're fearful of the unknown, I think a better question is to ask, what do I have to do today to get myself educated? And it goes back to educated. And then who should I talk to that can get me there faster? Right? So it's about, again, goes back to the education and human connections. If people understand what they are, where they want to go, and they understand what's available to them to get themselves better, and then who can help them. We're in the age of education, self-education, and most of stuff that you want to learn today, it's available to you. So I think it's just an opportunity for you to sit down on your own and with people and create a plan for yourself.
I firmly agree with that. As a technologist, is there any component, whether it be in the AI landscape or entirely different, any component, technologically speaking, that you're really excited about, or you're trying to get smart on to stay on the cutting edge?
Yeah, I've been a AI enthusiast for the past 4 or 5 years, I would say. I started from the foundations to understand the history of AI, to understand, kind of diving deeper into computer visioning, machine learning, large language models, so understand conceptually. And then seeing IBM implementing large scale AI. And then we use AI for many years inside of the company. But now it hit consumers and became this thing about generative AI, which is just a part of it, just one little niche within the broader AI. I'm passionately about business automation. I think it kind of brings back my G training, when we put a process in place to understand any particular function of business, right? I'm specialized in sales. But if you go, how do I take my product from, or service, from creating something, whether it's an offering for a service or a physical product, and get to the hands of my end users, right? My end customers, and money exchange pockets. How is that done? If you laid out that process, every sub process, there's an opportunity for automation. And there is a way of identifying repeatable tasks and make it smarter and applying AI. So I'm fascinated by automating business process. And in that process of automating, we use multiple tools, including AI being one of them. So we open up our technology toolbox and say, now I have AI, right? Which is more mature. There's more things to do. There's more. It's kind of like a machine gun for a nail gun for construction, right? But instead of using a hammer, then you can now use analytics. So you pull all this technology tools and you build solutions. So that's what I'm passionate about. So I'm focusing a lot of educating myself daily from an AI standpoint, and then combining with all the tools that I've acquired throughout my years of experience and solving problems to get to results. That's my focus.
It's funny. I've talked to my old colleagues at RSM, my old boss, Sean Gulati. I'm not sure if he's listening or not, but he had me we were slow. I was on the bench for first month or two, and he wanted me to get trained up on UiPath and Automation Anywhere, robotics process automation development. And I just could not, at that point, could not have cared less about AI and RPA. And I thought it was just some tool that was going to come and go, and it was going to be a worthless certificate. But I'm very grateful that I was strongly encouraged to sit through those trainings and get the certifications, because the applications for that tool are endless today, and they're just one, to your point, piece in the ecosystem of AI. And to your point, I think there's so many. I feel as though anyone that's able to just go and get any of these trainings or certifications online, I know my dad's a big proponent of that as well, but there's so much free education out there. I was listening to an interesting conversation. I don't remember if it was a podcast or what, but they were saying you could go and we're so blessed. Actually, it was Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom on his podcast. He mentioned we're so lucky that and so blessed that at whatever topic you want to learn, you could go and listen to the 3, 4, 5 best thought leaders, educators, academics on a specific subject, and then go and learn from the best actual implementers of that specific subject, whatever it might be, on YouTube or whatever else, in any given moment from anywhere in the world with the click of a button. So there's no excuse to not get educated on a particular topic you might care about.
Yeah, I mean, we're in 2023, and you probably know a handful of people that can build a website, right? And, I think the fear of technology has gotten smaller over the years, and now either people have technology as part of their resume or part of their skill set, or they're out of the market. That's reality, right? Just 10 years ago, I'm not talking about 50 years ago, 10 years ago, the narrative within every enterprise, you would go to the Gartner Summit. It was about how do IT leaders get a seat at the table so they can speak to the business. We were literally the order takers. We were the servers of, you're gonna come, I want you to give me this with this spice, with the, a rare meat with this sort of sauce, go make it, right? To now everyone wants to portray themselves as technology specialists, and I love it. And hardcore IT folks love it, because now we don't need to convince anybody that we should be part of the discussions, right? We are included and we are appreciated as part of the discussion.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about it like that. Even when I was doing consulting a couple of years ago, to your point, the CTO might have gotten a seat and been able to chime in on the discovery call to walk through, hey, we really need to think about how these systems are going to integrate together. And now I'm sure it's the common thread across all parts of the product management or project management lifecycle. I'm sure you see it every day.
Every day, absolutely.
Well, so as we round out here, are there any other pieces of inflection points or commentary you'd want to share with the audience? I know we're coming up close to time, but just so grateful for the insight you've been able to share. I feel like there's plenty of other rabbit holes that we didn't even get to dive into, but I want to give you the floor if there's anything else you'd want to share with the folks listening.
No, sure. I think, we talked a lot about my story and kind of my journey, but I think if I kind of take a step back and look at what lessons learned that have I learned and that I share, and I see more people sharing this kind of similarities with me. It's number one, I think my decision-making filter, which was about identifying patterns. And then for me was, what patterns have I had from childhood to now? And I was always asking myself the question, what really motivates me? So giving more tune to the things that motivates you. And as much as might sound just cliche or conceptual. It is true. Like if you really self-reflect and you look back, all the things you've done, you're gonna find patterns, and write down the things that motivates you. And I like how you ask your questions about the reflection points. I think the reflection points gets you back in that point in time, not to the scenario itself only, but the feelings you had. So try to find feelings that you had that gave you pleasure of, I want to repeat that more often. And then eliminate the things that you don't want it to happen again, will have prevent you, maybe an opportunity. For example, um, YouTube came out. I remember I had great ideas of creating content, but I was afraid. I thought my English was not good enough. Then I thought, maybe I'll be exposing myself and then people will be calling me this. So I have all these internal thoughts. And this is back in what, 2002, 2003. And I saw folks that I personally know starting out then, and they became successful within their own terms. So, but part of my learning, my lesson learnings from this, I think number one is eliminating regrets, right? I think when the way you ask questions, you make a decision and you can go one or the other if you have multiple options. Once you make a decision, I made decisions. I made good decisions and bad decisions, but the ones that I realized later, like, maybe I should have gone the other direction. And it's a pattern I have since childhood. I would lose a soccer game, and I would get really pissed off, get me mad. I want to talk to anybody. Within 5-10 minutes, life moves on. It's a game, no regrets. I did my best. Unfortunately, we lost, right? So I think lesson learned number one is eliminating regrets. Number two is the ability to decide what you want, right? And I think that really moves the needle, because sometimes we kind of find ourselves in between ideas and decisions, and we got in limbo and we want a validation, is deciding what we want. And the minute I understood that, and I met someone the other day, and he spent 8 years in China. And I said, hey, I was in China for a while. I trained with the Chinese. I learned a ton. You lived there for 8 years. What is the biggest lesson you learned in China? He said, if there's one thing that I appreciate about Chinese, is how quickly they make decisions. You just make decisions and go with it, right? And they make things happen. Again, bad decisions, good decisions. And I think the third one is, I think I talked about leveraging the who. Now that I'm older, I think I've always done that. I've identified myself mentors. I've talked to a lot of people. But if you're trying to do something, it's not about what I want to do only, is about who have done that and who can help you. So as simple as it sounds, people don't go and ask for help. So leverage those that have done it and ask for help. And the final point, which I also mentioned, I think there's no finish line until we are dead. So achieving results, celebrating is part of a cycle. So there is no, oh, this person's way too ambitious, or this person just can never have enough. Or sometimes people look at people that they define as successful and say, look at that guy, has all the money in the world, got to the highest level position they want, they have a thriving business. From the outside, has everything. Well, have you gotten to a point in your time that you thought you had everything? How did you feel? So we have to continue to dream and envision and learn in making human connections.
That's just so much incredible knowledge. Let me summarize here to make sure, and let me know if I missed anything. But for folks listening or just tuning into the end here, Gustavo Netto, global IT leader. Piece of advice number one: no analysis paralysis. Just make a decision, make it quickly, and move on. Number two: once you make that decision, don't have any regrets. Once you've made that decision, you just move forward, stay present, stay focused. and get on to the next one, because you'll continue on with your path. Number 3 is the importance of your network and making sure that you're continuing to build strong relationships personally, professionally, and working in good faith to make sure that you're helping out those, that selfish, what healthy selfishness, as you mentioned earlier, helping those around you to help yourself. And then lastly, just keeping moving forward and detaching from the outcomes, as I talk about on a lot of the other episodes, focusing on the present moment, enjoying the journey, and detaching from whatever those outcomes might be. And as long as you're present, enjoying the journey of the highs and the lows, the celebrations, or the wins and the celebrations, and whatever comes after it, you just have to keep moving forward. So I think I got it all there, but correct me if I'm wrong.
You did a beautiful job.
I appreciate it, Gustavo. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. It was a true pleasure to connect, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Thanks so much.